I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns. We're back together after 10 days in Tokyo. It's December 2nd, Tuesday. We got so much to talk about. We had 2 days off and then Andrea filled in. Thank you to Andrea for filling in while I was off in Tokyo. We're going to talk a little bit about Tokyo. We got a couple of stories that relate to it as well. But on the docket for this morning, conservatives say Carney in conflict and they want to close that loophole. And it's all about energy. We say that over and over again. Chaos continues in the Carney cabinet. An old face returns to the cabinet, and it is not a friendly one. Guilbeault breaks down. Smith with their own version of who cares. Got a little smirk there from me in there. Who's writing these contracts of support? We know no one's reading them. Joly. Canada promises more money to the EU. Canadian youth feel abandoned. More vanity projects for the Liberals. May come what may. Figure that one out. Liberals dentacare way over budget. Shocker. Nothing says caring like another junket. Pierre embraces humor. Alberta makes a stand for law and order. Canadians still confused. Tokyo versus Canada. And joining Joly is OEB. Americans at the Kremlin. Trump knocking at the door of Venezuela. And I think it's Olivia Chow's dance partner there in Venezuela as well. Starmer talks and talks. And lastly, is there hope? All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. Here where we try to give you it more straight and more direct and less leaning, but just more like just straight news. We're trying to save Canada. How's that? That's our job here. Trying to make a better tomorrow. And a part of that is being realistic of what's going on. So I missed chatting with you for the last 10 days, but I'm glad to be back. And we'll kick it off with the top story here. And it's all about power, right? Like, I mean, and the West has a power problem. Look at this power generation and look where Canada sits. You know, you look at China, what it's building for power over the past, little while here, especially since 2005, they've taken off. Canada's just basically in flatline, especially, since 2015. I mean, we should be one of the richest resource nations in the world, and yet we're not building out our power or energy infrastructure. And the U.S. is, basically the same thing, although they are showing a little bit of a climb. The same thing goes for Europe. But Europe actually sliding downwards. But this is what it's all about when we talk about AI and power. Look at what China's doing as far as electricity goes. And they're taking electricity from everywhere, from solar to wind to coal plants they fire up to small modular reactors to big nuclear reactors, to LNG, to whatever they can get power out of, they will get power.
They would assign millions of their citizens to ride bikes to generate power. If it came to that, they would do that. And that's kind of like, in a way, that's why China, that's the real reason to be afraid of China and its authoritarian system. Is that, it is an authoritarian system, but however you want to describe it, it's like it's super strong central command. It can do things faster and on a grander scale than we can do. We've learned that. And then Western countries or any other country really can do, any other system. Even like Russia's authoritarian system is just like ramshackle and ridiculous in so many ways. But the Chinese, they can really build things out. And that's why they've dominated so many industries. And they can also do it at a lower price because they don't, it's kind of brutal, but true, but they just don't respect the individual. So they will condemn people to a sort of a hard, miserable life if it's in the interest of China on the whole. That kind of thing doesn't really happen in the West or in democracies. And because of that, it really looks like, and it's quite scary, it's really scaring quite a lot of people, including, in the past, you've referenced Jensen Huang, he's sort of convinced that they've already won, isn't he? He thinks that there's no way to defeat them, that they've already won this war. But that's why people are afraid of China, because their system has so many flaws. Obviously, there's so many problems associated with it, but they can do things like get their energy grid like fast forwarded in the sort of decades in the space of years, while we sit here in Canada. If you look at that, the Canadian one, 1985, Canada's population in 1985 was about 26 million. It's now 42 million. And it has the same amount of power. You wonder why British Columbia has to take power from Alberta and Washington. That's why the population has increased enormously, a huge increase in population, and no real serious effort to increase power generation. And if anything, what's happened is there's been a commitment to resist the building of new energy infrastructure. So I just don't know, how can you beat China when it comes to electricity generation? I mean, there's also with like data centers, that pie in the sky stuff that you hear from people like Adrian Dix, that it can all be done with wind power or green hydrogen or solar. It can't be done with that. Like, there are even questions about whether it can be done with natural gas. And people are starting to say now it's either nuclear or it's coal. Or, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have hydro. So I don't know. It's How do we win this battle when we're going up against an extremely formidable foe that will do anything to win, and we don't seem to have any interest in winning?
I think you nailed it when you said China would even put people on bicycles to generate power, because it is all about energy. It is all about energy in this new world that we're about to face. AI, it's a big consumer of power, and it's all about energy. And it is a multi-pronged approach that is the correct approach. Not, it's all wind, it's all this, it's all that. It's everything, and that's what China's doing. It's everything. Anything that can generate power, they're doing it. And they're firing up new coal plants, they're firing up LNG, they're firing up anything they can, SMRs. So they have some of the biggest solar farms in existence. They have, some big wind stuff. They have geothermal. They have everything. Everything is about power. Everything is about power. And I was just in Tokyo, like I said at the beginning of the show. Their transit system is second to none. It's all electrified too. It's just all runs on electricity. They're bullet trains. I think I was on one that did about 300 kilometers an hour. And whisper quiet, and super smooth, like unbelievable. And yet, and Canada is so far behind, and yet we have all the resources. Compared to Japan, we are just so rich in resources, yet we squander them because of the government policies here that just seem so narrow-minded and vanity-focused. We're going to talk a little bit about their vanity and about filling their own pockets all the time, instead of like enriching our nation. And it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. We're going to talk a little bit more about power in the United States, because they've taken a different approach as well right now, and they're driving down the cost of their power. And that's the key thing. Drive down the cost of energy, increase energy. That's the key. And here's the big one, though. We seem to be right now, we have a Liberal government that seems to have a lot of conflicts of interest. The Prime Minister is tied to Brookfield, which is one of Canada's largest corporations, which happens to have like 2,000 plus entities tied to it. And it's tied to energy and a whole bunch of things, including carbon capture. So the Conservatives have taken another step to compel Prime Minister Carney to sell millions of his stock holdings. The Commons Ethics Committee on Friday asked Parliament to rewrite the Conflict of Interest Act to eliminate what Conservatives have dubbed the Carney loophole. Conservatives have serious concerns about the Prime Minister's unprecedented corporate and shareholding interests. I don't think ever in Canadian history have we had a Prime Minister had so many potential conflicts of interest. And conflict of interest is just a perceived conflict of interest too. It doesn't actually have to be a conflict of interest, even if it's perceived. And right now, they have over 2,000 businesses that they own as part of their funds and investment strategy. That's from Justin Bieber, the Brookfield Chief Operating Officer. And we don't even know all this stuff. And a lot of the contracts that Canadian government is signing now seem to have links to Brookfield, including the commitment to the European Space Agency, this carbon capture stuff that they're pushing forward. A lot of it has to do with these contracts. And if the Prime Minister stands to gain in all these contracts, it puts Canada at a disadvantage. And then Scott Bassett there, the Treasury, I got all those names, the Treasury Secretary there said there is no such thing as a blind trust. He sold all his stock interests, and that's what Carney should do as well. He should just take his salary as a Prime Minister and then put all his stuff in cash. Maybe he should just put it in Canadian dollars, put it in Canadian bonds, and then we'll see how his reactions are different.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? But yeah, the idea that this is a blind trust, what a farce. That's like saying he spent his entire life as a squirrel collecting these nuts and putting them in the tree. And then all of a sudden he leaves the tree and he goes down he walks a little bit further into the forest. We're supposed to believe that that squirrel has just completely forgotten what the nuts are and or which nuts he's collected at his tree. Like, obviously, this is his life's work. This is his legacy. This is everything. It's all of his wealth. Of course, he knows what's in there. There's nothing blind about it. He knows every decision he makes, every announcement he makes. He, above all, this guy who spent his life in finance, he knows what's happening to his money. He knows whether it's going up or whether it's going down based on his announcements. Of course he does. And this Justin Bieber fella, I mean, he had a meeting with him not so long ago. It just kind of it blows the mind. It's that head exploding meme, isn't it? Can you imagine if this, just for the sake of convenience and simplicity, let's just imagine Donald Trump, right? Spent his life, oh, well, he did spend his life at the Trump organization. Imagine if he had a meeting with, he'd given the company to someone else and he had a meeting with that person and it was just all kind of quiet and hush hush. And then he said afterwards, oh, but we didn't talk about the Trump organization. Because that's what Carney wants us to believe, that actually it was a meeting about anti-Semitism, that was the subject, and they didn't talk about anything else. I just find that impossible to believe. I can't swallow that.
And it's odd that we saw that too, and we said that Carney is likely going to drop the emissions cap because what he wants to do is actually get CCUS going, because Brookfield's made a big bet in CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and that is billions and billions of dollars that Brookfield has invested into carbon capture, which is now almost a dead technology because the Americans have walked away from it. And American companies now coming to Canada so they can reap the rewards of lucrative tax credits from the Canadian government and then have the ability to generate revenue by selling these carbon credits to our energy companies. And that's what this whole deal is, this MOU that was cooked up with Alberta there, that MOU they signed. It all has to do with industrial carbon tax and CCUS and everything. And it's forced Minister Guilbeault to resign. And he said it was a great sadness that he submitted his resignation. And there was actually, he was on like a French radio show. We're going to play a little clip of that first here.
Et vous le dites, hein, je suis plus ministre de l'Environnement, bien sûr, vous étiez à l'identité et à la culture, et on vous aimait...
ministre de la Nature.
Oui.
J'avais encore un petit bout.
Oui, oui. Mais le milieu culturel semblait vous aimer beaucoup. Et vous le dites, hein, je suis plus ministre de l'Environnement, bien sûr, vous étiez à l'identité et à la culture, et on vous aimait...
ministre de la Nature.
Oui.
J'avais encore un petit bout.
Oui, oui. Mais le milieu culturel semblait vous aimer beaucoup. Il y a beaucoup de témoignages depuis quelques jours. On disait il était impliqué, on l'aimait beaucoup, c'était vraiment un allié pour nous.
Il y était là avant.
Il était là avant aussi, c'est votre deuxième mandat. On vous voyait dans des premières, et c'est pas le cas de tous les ministres de la culture. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression que vous abandonnez un peu la culture? Je vais prendre ça pour un nom.
Ben, tu sais, il y a tellement de choses que j'aurais voulu pouvoir faire avec eux autres encore. Mais le sacrifice de faire ça, le prix était trop payé à lever. Mais comme député libéral, je vais continuer d'être là puis de travailler pour eux. Puis on peut quand même avoir une influence sur les politiques publiques. Puis... Mais c'est sûr que tu as un peu ce sentiment-là d'abandonner des gens.
There you go. Have you had any doubt that he was an ideologue and that he was committed to this cause, even at the expense of Canadians and, you know, the economy? There you go. He was definitely emotional there and lost his power there to drive policy here in Canada, because I think Mark Carney sees it more as a way to make money with Brookfield, and you know, like you could tell that was coming on a collision course, because Carney and Brookfield there, they definitely want to make money off the CCUS, and the way to do that is you got to allow the oil to be sold, and then you run this scheme here, this scheme that adds nothing, and they called it a new industry as well, which is basically ludicrous. An industry that doesn't do anything is basically just a scheme to generate taxation revenues, and they call it a new industry. Imagine that, calling a new tax scheme and industry. So Canada can now claim that.
They were talking about how the world will be interested, and we're going to be, we're going to lead the world. It's like, okay.
Canada has a new industry. It's called taxation. corporations will be flocking here.
It's called burying gas in deep in the ground at great cost. Are you interested, anyone?
Well, Danielle Smith had her "Who Cares" moment when reacting to Stephen Guilbeault, because Stephen Guilbeault in that interview also attacked Danielle Smith and said that she's the problem, not realizing that Mark Carney doesn't come to, he still doesn't understand it. Mark Carney is the one that is the real issue there, because Mark Carney is doing this for money, whereas Danielle Smith is doing it for the, like to drive economy for Alberta. But let's listen to what Danielle Smith has to say.
And last night, Stephen Guilbeault was on a pretty major Francophone national show talking about you, saying that you're a not reliable partner because you're never satisfied with the deals made with Ottawa, criticized you for the moratorium on renewable energy. What do you think of his comments and the fact that the reputation he's given you to the Quebec population?
Wow, talk about an unwilling and hostile partner, defines Stephen Guilbeault. And I'm quite glad to see him go and not have the influence in caucus that he clearly had under the previous administration. I think Prime Minister Mark Carney demonstrated that we can get to a deal. We've got a deal that includes a major emissions reduction piece of technology and project with the path.
That's good. So Danielle Smith not really getting a lot of kudos for the signing the same, because a lot of Albertans are really buying into the CCUS, but she's seeing it as a way to get, Alberta energy to the West Coast and increase and removing the emissions cap, and then some deals on energy as well for the electrification grid there in Alberta. But a lot of Albertans still see the CCUS as not a great path forward. Scott Moe saying no to industrial carbon tax as well. So.
Apparently, Guilbeault's the final straw for him was the tax credits to, cleaner oil, and I think it's carbon capture as well. But certainly, there's a method that you can use to get more oil out of. It's related to carbon capture. Anyway, he hated the idea that was going to be subsidized, in his words, and thought that was a sort of crazy thing to do for the federal government or taxpayers to subsidize oil companies. But the thing is, it's like this clean technology. They're doing that to some extent, to a huge extent. They're doing that reluctantly, aren't they? They're doing that as a kind of tithe, as like a gold coin to the priest, so that they can be permitted to go about their business. They're not doing that with any relish. So it does seem quite a peculiar thing to throw your toys out of the pram over. But this is not the end of Guilbeault. It's certainly not the end of what he represents, because he represents, to a certain extent, he represents some sort of people in Vancouver and Toronto and these sort of environmentalist types. But really what he represents, I think, is Quebec. And the Quebec problem, it's been here since before Canada existed, and it's still here. It's going to be here long after Guilbeault's gone. The problem is that Quebec and the rest of Canada really are like different countries. They don't, it's horrible. It could bring a tear to, but they don't work. They don't work together. And that's why Canada doesn't work. And I think as a consequence, this is not over. This is not the great sort of solution, because it's just gonna persist. And to think they've just given up on Energy East. They've given up on an Eastern pipeline. That's not even they're not even wasting their time anymore. This is not even about Quebec itself. It's not about the sort of territory of Quebec. We're talking about the Pacific here, thousands of miles away from Quebec. And yet they still have this passion to undermine it and prevent it from happening. At least some people, mostly in the city of Montreal. That's not going away. Obviously, their ardor has not been calmed, has it, in the last few years. It's as strong as it ever was.
Is there a way for us to pull up that first chart just to show that? Because this is an important point. If we go back to that first chart we had there with energy. Now you look at that, and you have to understand this now. It's all about energy, and this show says this every time. It's all about energy. And look at Canada, the red line at the bottom, the red flat line at the bottom. This is what the Liberals have done to Canada. And not just the Liberals. We're sitting on some of the biggest resources in the world. And this is what we've done to ourselves. This is what we've done. Right now, if we had pushed our energy, all the AI companies would be coming to Canada for energy, excess energy. I mean, we have it all. We have hydro, we have natural gas, we have oil. We have SMRs that we could build. We have some going in Ontario right now. We have so much energy, and we have cold climates. Like we could put these AI data centers in the north and power them. And yet we don't. And this is all because of these policies and these ideologues that don't understand what's going on. And here's our new environment minister, Joly saying that she doesn't know whether she supports a new pipeline or not. What? Like, what? No, go back one. It's just, she doesn't even know that whether or not she supports a pipeline or not. Because they're all wishing that oh no, you're still going back, go back. There's no slide for it. But anyway, so there you go. Couple of kinks there. Hey, we're just back. The show's back, and we got a couple of kinks to iron out. Again, we don't have CBC's budget. If anybody would like to donate to our budget or ask CBC to give us some of their money, because let's take a look. Let's see what CBC has to show for itself today. Do we have CBC? Do we have the website today? What CBC is trying to tell us today while we're at this? Because I'm just wondering what they want to tell us today. CBC News. So we do have that Assembly of First Nations calling for withdrawal of Canada-Alberta pipeline. So there you go. Let's get rid of the pipeline. Ontario Auditor General seeks new province. And Trump. There you go.
Restaurant on the brink because they don't have enough cheap foreign labor.
Just driving the narrative, eh? Anyway, so Mark Miller makes his return to cabinet. Mark Miller, the one that called you a racist if you dared question his immigration policies. Remember that on the street there when a reporter asked him about immigration, he called him a racist. So how dare you question Mark Miller? This guy's got to be one of the most sanctimonious pieces of work out there. And here he is back in cabinet. So you think that he was sent to hinterland, but not so much. He's back, and he's going to be the heritage minister. I did see the email that you wrote off to Mark Miller there asking for an interview on Bill C-18. I doubt if we get a response from him either. It's 5 months of trying to get Stephen Guilbeault, an interview with Stephen Guilbeault on the Bill C-18 that is basically killing, suppressing, and crippling media in Canada. Well, they fill the trough of the CBC. So we're going to see if our friend Mark Miller here is going to speak to you.
Well, he spoke to CBC yesterday. Of course, he made time for the CBC, and obviously was not asked the most important question that he's going to have to deal with, which is the death of Canada's news media because of decisions made by the Liberal government to antagonize Meta to such an extent that Meta banned news on Facebook and Instagram, just for people in Canada, by the way. If you don't live in Canada, then you can still get the news. Just in this country. Guilbeault never really said anything about it, didn't take it seriously, didn't care about it, even though he literally wrote the book about his opposition to Meta and these big tech giants. Wasn't opposed enough to do anything about that, wasn't opposed enough not to give Meta money to try and save his own skin so he could be elected back into Parliament. And now we have Mark Miller. Is there any prospect that he's going to care? It seems the Liberal Party, from the top down, don't care about this issue. They do not care about the death of Canadian news media. They're just not bothered.
It works for them.
That's the only conclusion that I can arrive at, is that they don't care. And then the other thing I would say is, it was Pascal Santonge, obviously, Quebec MP, Francophone. Then it was Guilbeault, Montreal MP, Francophone. Now it's Mark Miller, who's like sort of a bit of both, really, isn't he? He's like, I think his mother was a Francophone or something like that, but a Montrealer as well. Is this job now, is this just like a guaranteed Quebec job? Is that how it works? Is this just like affirmative action? What is this? Why is it always people from the same, like a tiny little geographic and cultural area always have this job? What is going on? Again, I ask, is this a democracy? Is this a real democracy? Or is this like the millet system in the Ottoman Empire? What is this? Like, what kind of system are we living in?
I would say that the Liberals not only usually say they don't care about the media, I think it's intentional of what's going on with the media, because the media is obviously crippled. 100 outlets, almost 100 outlets have failed since the introduction of Bill C-18, and the only one that they're trying to strengthen is the CBC, and we know that the CBC is not acting in the best interests of Canada. That's pretty obvious, and yet this is what they have. So, I mean, they crippled half the journalists' salaries are paid by the government now, so they're not held to account. So it seems like the best of both worlds. Because, I mean, if Mark Carney had all these conflicts of interest in the UK or the United States, he'd be ripped to shreds on all the stuff that's going on. And yet, very little is even discussed about it. I remember in the beginning, they were even trying to put out the story that he's, you know, of meager means. He wasn't even that rich. And I said, he's either got to be the worst CEO of the largest corporation, one of the largest corporations in the world, or he's lying. Turns out. And this guy says, this guy Talib there, Nur Hamad, he's got to be one of the best Carney speakers ever. Liberal, say nothing, but just talk for a while. Listen to what he has to say about this First Nations consent provincial support here. He's a BC MP here.
Are your BC caucus colleagues comfortable with the idea of a bitumen pipeline through the Great Bear Rainforest to the north coast of British Columbia, and with the changes to things like the tanker ban? Because these have been issues you ran on in the past as a party and as a government that are now potentially on the table for removal.
Well, David, I think what Liberal members of Parliament for British Columbia and across the country are comfortable with is a process that requires the participation of Indigenous communities, that ensures that jurisdictions implicated are part of that process and conversation, that we are working together to ensure that the criteria that have been set by the Prime Minister are met. And I think, you know, when we are talking about a theoretical pipeline, as the Premier herself noted, that doesn't have a route, that doesn't currently have a proponent, that doesn't currently have...
He's just going to say the same thing over and over, but means nothing. Say a bunch of buzzwords, just talk in circles, typical Liberal nonsense.
Well, I mean, I wish I could say that the other MPs were better. A few of them are, or the other parties. But this is just the standard, he's been briefed before he went on air here saying, don't say anything. That's what we expect. Don't say anything. And he succeeded. But as I've said many times, these are the people that undermine democracy. Democracy you can't hope to persist with a democratic system when you have people like that. Simple as that. Because that is just an insult. That's just an insult to every Canadian voter. It's just reprehensible behavior. And we see it every single day, don't we? It's just relentless. But I would say, sorry, just on the pipeline thing, there's such an interesting conversation going on about it now, since Tim Hodgson said, in a surreal revelation from Tim Hodgson, he was like, he said something along the lines of like, who says this pipeline's going to go to the North Coast? It's like, what? That's what this whole thing's about. So I guess now, because he mentioned the Great Bear Rainforest there, didn't he, Cochrane, and this idea that it's going to go, I mean, the assumption was that it was going to go to Prince Rupert much quicker to Asia then. Then you just pop north of Haida Gwaii and round Alaska and Bob's your uncle. You don't have to go south out of Vancouver or Burnaby or whatever, then round Vancouver Island. It's a quicker route. But apparently, we're all idiots for assuming that it's had something to do with Prince Rupert and a pipeline gone to northern BC, because Hodgson and a lot of other people now are saying this, like they've like eager puppies at the master's table. They've got the crumbs and they're saying, oh yeah, well maybe it's not going to go there actually. And that would mean the only possible conclusion, therefore, is that they just want to build another pipeline to Burnaby or to Vancouver. Like, okay, but what is going on? Like they don't know their arse from their elbow, as they say.
If you could like, share, comment, and help us get this out there more. Obviously, we're trying to wake up Canada. We're trying to get the news out there. This is an independent media outlet, and we're trying to fight the narratives out there, and we're trying to make Canada a better place, and that comes with being more informed. And here's another one. This is Algoma Steel that announces 1,000 layoffs there at its plant in Sault Ste. Marie. And the move comes just after they got $500 million from the Carney Liberals to withstand those U.S. tariffs. You know, again, more money dished out, and here come the layoffs. And it's going to be effective in 16 weeks. And this is after getting $500 million. And then they have these old blast furnaces and and the Trudeau government gave them $420 million in federal funding. And that was in the past. And then another $500 million. Here's Joly. She's got to be in the running for taking over from Justin Trudeau, of the Hall of Famer clown of the day. But here's Mélanie Joly again with one of her, I can't imagine how she's still in cabinet, but let's listen to what Mélanie Joly still has to say here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, our thoughts are with the workers affected by the unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs imposed by the White House, and we'll continue to work with them as Algoma Steel is going through a difficult situation, to say the least. Mr. Speaker, my team and I have been in contact with Algoma's leadership team. We absolutely have every confidence in the Algoma workers as they're going through this hardship, and we will make sure that we support them as they're developing new products and also accessing new markets. We'll fight for these jobs, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, more promises and more liberal thoughts will not put food on the table of those out-of-work steelworkers.
Mélanie Joly reminds me of that girl in that mean girl, I think, the Plastiques. You know, she's just always just saying nonsense. It's like bullying, and it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. And then the scandal there with that Stellantis contract. Where's that in the CBC? Like, that one should be just like red raw meat there that they're tearing into. Didn't even read the contract. Billions of dollars in subsidies. And then still the layoffs, and nobody even read the contract. Here's another $500 million given to Algoma Steel. Where's the job?
And what's going to happen to that money? You know, what was written into what conditions were attached to that? You know, when are we getting that back, guys?
And here's some. Let's listen to this clip here on Algoma Steel.
Well, and I think this sort of speaks to, like what Brian was saying, Tom, about it may not happen all at once, but there's the Stellantis story, the other car stories. Like this is, just last week, if we can remember, a few days ago, the Prime Minister was making announcements meant to help reinforce a turn to the domestic industry for steel because they have completely lost the American market. And now this sort of they're confronted with this economic reality.
Exactly. And, you know, because I was head of the NDP and we're very close to those unions, including the steelworkers, I know that factory. I've been there. I've met those workers. And it's heartbreaking. You know, it really is truly heartbreaking to see so close to the holiday season on top of everything else, people just being said, well, what are we going to do? Because these are good jobs. You know, people are trained up to them. And
it's just, again, empty promises and more money that just flows out the door. And then meanwhile, look at the bonuses being raked in by the brass there. Algoma Steel brass raking millions of dollars in bonuses, like I think in 2024, $5.6 million in bonuses.
Isn't it amazing? Being just given infinite money for being a failure. It's just great. It's unbelievable. It's kind of like, the only thing I can compare it to is in sports. Sometimes somebody will get a massive contract in sports and fail just catastrophically, just be a complete and utter failure. And then they get fired and in the process get like $10 million. It's like, there you go, you big loser. Why do we do this? What has possessed us as a species to give failures gigantic amounts of money?
CBC given $1.55 billion to hold power to account, and they do a very, very, very poor job of it. And listen, here's more on Joly. When GM announced the CAMI shutdown laid off 1,200 workers, Mélanie Joly demanded a full update within 15 days and promised transparency and clarity 39 days later. Let's listen in to Andrew Lawton, MP there.
The honourable member for Elgin St. Thomas. When GM shut down the CAMI plant and laid off 1,200 workers, the industry minister claimed she was on it. She said she was demanding a full update from GM within 15 days and that she would offer transparency to Canadians. That was 39 days ago. No clarity, no plan, no relief for auto workers in Elgin, St. Thomas, and London, who this Liberal government told they would have their backs. When the Prime Minister was asked about standing up for Canadian jobs, he said, who cares? My question is to the Industry Minister. Does she?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, we are all very much aware that the auto workers are affected by the unjustifiable and unjustified American tariffs. And that is why we've been supporting all of them, working with Unifor, working with Lana Pine, who's on speed dial, and to whom which I speak pretty much every day. That being said, we'll continue to fight against Stellantis to make sure that they bring back their operation at Brampton. We'll make sure that we work with GM at the Cami plant in Ingersoll, because we think that there's a path towards a good news story.
She's struggling.
Shocking. It's just absolutely shocking that the CBC, like, again, if you go to the CBC website, there's no story there, right? Where's the story on how abysmal Melanie Joly has been in Canada, representing industry? How abysmal.
Just look at her, like, just believe your eyes and ears. Like, she's so flustered and she doesn't know what she's doing. I'm like, it's a tragedy, actually. It's a very bad thing for Canada. If you believe in Canada and you want Canada to succeed, this is a tragedy that, people of that caliber are in the government. She is completely lost. You can tell.
They're signing over billions of dollars of taxpayer money in subsidies, and they don't even read the contracts. Come on. Like, how is that even possible? How is that even possible? And yet the media, the CBC media, like Mark Carney said himself, that's the plan, instead of like removing Bill C-18. The plan is to give CBC more money. That's supposed to hold government to account. How can they hold government to account when they're basically feeding at the trough that the Liberals shovel into their trough for them? And there's Melanie Joly.
But they also recruit from the same pool of. They recruit from the same pool of people. They recruit from university graduates from the same universities, and they live in the same cities, Toronto, Montreal, and so on. The Liberal Party, the actual membership and the MPs, the caucus, all the rest of it, and staff at CBC, that you can't see, there's no light between them. They're the same people. So how could they possibly hold them to account?
Yeah, BR 9811 says they're stealing as much as possible for the end. And I've said that myself. It seems like they know that the gig is up and they're just taking whatever they can get their paws on. If you even look at Global, which is Chorus stock, you look at that one too. That's basically the walking dead of media. And the stock is basically cratered. Yet the executives feed at the trough where they lay off the workers. The workers getting laid off left and right at Chorus. But the executive taking bonuses like crazy, like the Sun, and Catherine Tate took a big fat bonus as well, and said that she deserved it, even though the CBC does not serve the interests of Canadians. And here's another one.
Even though by any objective metric she's a failure, just like that Algoma guy is a failure by any objective metric. But the thing is, don't look at it objectively. Look at it subjectively, and from the perspective of who the CBC represents. I guess in that sense, maybe she was a success.
Help us get a bigger voice. Like, share, comment. They took away our audience of 200,000 with Bill C-18. We're trying to grow this audience here with this show. We're trying to hold it power to account. We're trying to get as many interviews as we can. The Liberals don't like to talk, but we're going to try and see if we can force them to talk. And the bigger voice we have, the more clout we will have. Here's another big story, though. This is absolutely in the realm of crazy again. Canada clinched a deal to join Europe's $150 billion defense scheme. There's a great representative
defense.
of it.
Defense spelled wrong there. That's not very friendly, is it, to Canadian interests? But, I guess it depends, really, doesn't it? The British wanted to get into this, but they backed out because it was... They weren't willing to pay whatever the cost was. It was too great a cost, and they weren't willing to pay it. Canada's in, which obviously prompts the question, what did it cost? McGuinty, I believe it was McGuinty, was asked that
We're going to
question
have that.
yesterday.
We're going to have
Didn't
that
answer
here
it.
we're going to have that here for you in a bit. But here's Mark Carney and Ursula von der Leyen, welcoming Canada. Welcome to safe Canada. We're the only non-European nation in this SAFE program. We also just gave them tons of money for a European space program, which Brookfield has some ties to. Imagine that. No conflict there, is there? Nothing to see here, right? But here's David McGuinty. You talked about David McGuinty when they asked how much it was going to cost. And David McGuinty, standing next to our Liberal MP in our local area here that refuses to do interviews or even answer questions here, Stephen Fuhr.
Ago, Canada signed a new security and defence partnership with the European Union. Today, the Prime Minister has announced the conclusion of negotiations for Canada's participation in SAFE. Canada is the only country outside of the European Union to be asked to join the European Union. So it's a very unique opportunity for us. We're here to take your questions.
Ask you, the other non-European country that's been negotiating to join SAFE is the UK. And negotiations have broken down because of the entrance fee. Reportedly, in the case of the UK, $6 billion to join SAFE. What is the amount you expect we're going to be paying to join SAFE?
I'm not aware of the UK situation. And as you know, I learned a long time ago as a former negotiator,
That's good. He doesn't say anything of any value. There's our friend Stephen Fuhr, though. I think Steve McNall reached out to him 7 times for a comment. And Steve McNall, one of the most respected business reporters here in the Okanagan, and 30 plus years. 0 comment from Stephen Fuhr. I've reached out to him several times for an interview as well. 0. Good job, Stephen Fuhr.
He also didn't say anything at this press conference, I don't think. I'm not even sure why he was there. Weird, sort of like window dressing or something to make it look like it's like lots of people on the job. I don't know. But as for this SAFE thing, I mean, it seems to me quite transparent that this is yet another attempt, isn't it, to make the Americans feel jealous and to sort of give the impression that Canada's like an independent woman going out there into the world. Whether or not it's a good deal remains to be seen, because obviously, as usual, the Liberal government doesn't want to tell us what it's doing with our money that it's decided is actually their money.
And really, I mean, European SAFE, NATO is the one that matters. The American military is the big stick in the world. There is no doubt about it. Anita Nunn,
But we just, as well, we looked, didn't we? We looked at the energy thing. You looked at Europe and how it declined. Gee, like, why did that happen? Why did that happen, Jim? Has it got something to do with the Germans decommissioning their nuclear power plants and the British detonating, like literally blowing up and demolishing their power plants because they used fossil fuels? Has it got something maybe to do with the Europeans being the stupidest people in the history of the world right now? Could it possibly have something to do with that? And that's the team you want to go and, stake your life on being reliable and sensible and tough. Especially when they call something like this safe. I mean, that might sound trivial. That might sound like a ridiculous comment to make. But can you imagine the Americans doing something like that? Calling something like this safe. We just want to make you safe. The Americans would call it something like spear, wouldn't they? Or like nuke. It's all about the attitude of the Europeans. The Europeans, it's almost like nihilism predominates among the European elite. It's almost like they want to die. That's the impression that I get from the European elite. Do you really want to go in and sort of and hold hands with the Europeans and say, these are my guys. We're going to defend ourselves together. This is the phalanx, and we're gonna defend ourselves against the Chinese and the Russians. I just don't think they have what it takes spiritually, even materially. I don't think the Europeans have even close to what it takes. So this idea that they're our salvation, I just think that's absurd, isn't it? That's just ridiculous thinking.
Back to it's all about energy. And if you want to put on a tinfoil hat, you could say perhaps the Chinese have been funding these groups that push against anti-energy policies in Canada, Europe, the UK, and all that, and actually to the demise of those Western nations that have seemed to be slipping backwards while the Chinese nation rises and to become the second most powerful economic power, and it's quickly rising and to become one of the strongest militaries in the world too, because you need energy to win wars too. And Japan found that out in the Second World War. Their lack of access to energy was part of their problem. And
the Germans, it screwed both of them. The Germans tried to get the Baku oil fields. That's what Stalingrad was about. And they were defeated there and then when they lost the Battle of Stalingrad because they couldn't get oil. The Japanese, as everybody knows, had the clock was ticking right from the Pearl Harbor. They needed to obtain a source of oil, and they didn't get it. It really is. In this case, you're absolutely right. Energy is just like everything. You win or you lose based on your energy.
And then while I was in Tokyo, I understand Melanie Joly and Anita and Ann were there as well. I didn't run into them though, but they signed, again, another MOU they signed. MOUs mean nothing. just like signing a welcome book or whatever, right? And she said, they signed another MOU with Japan, and trading relationship already worth about $36 billion annually. One thing about Japan, when I was there in Tokyo, I was in Tokyo and Osaka, and spent 10 days there. Rode their subways and was all around, walked around at 3 in the morning because I get up early. And I did walk-arounds at 3 in the morning, felt 100% safe. I wouldn't do that here in Kelowna. I wouldn't walk around at 3 in the morning in downtown Kelowna. I walked around there, felt completely safe. No homeless people that I saw in my 10 days in Tokyo and Osaka. And no people strung out on drugs. Did I see that anywhere? And the subway systems and their transit systems were completely clean, no graffiti. Shop owners are out there at 3, 4 in the morning. They're scrubbing the sidewalks. Completely clean everywhere. It's absolutely amazing. Their bullet train, I was on it, it's about 300 kilometers an hour. It's whisper quiet and super smooth. I mean, they move around. There's 135 million people in Japan, and they move so many people through there. It's just absolutely beautiful, very respectful culture, and absolutely amazing. And the big and is food was cheaper. Everything was kind of cheaper there. Everything was cheaper there. Like there's vending machines everywhere. They figured some stuff out that's absolutely amazing. Vending machines everywhere, everywhere, and water and whatever you want. Cold coffee, hot coffee in these machines, like $1.20. And one thing, this is going to sound ridiculous, but if you want to take your butt on a holiday, that's the place to go.
People are going to misinterpret that, Jim.
It's absolutely amazing. Every toilet, public and that, they have the high-tech toilets there. Even in some of them, they have music in case you're a loud user of the number 2 room. You can turn on the music to kind of like soften the blow for the others in the room. But they got the wash thing, the hot water. They got everything in there. Absolutely incredible, and seeing that everywhere. And then compare that to France. I was in France, and they don't even have toilet seats in France. So they just basically have a hole in the ground in France. And yeah, Japanese
or Britain, or England. But it's the strangest thing of all, and a lot of people have been asking this question for ages. I can remember being a kid and hearing this question from my grandfather, who was in the war. But lots of people are asking the question: who won the war exactly? The English, the British, or the Japanese? My grandfather fought the Japanese, and then I can remember as a kid speaking to him, and he often asked that question. He was like, "It feels like we lost and they won." It's such an interesting question, though. They lost a devastating war. They were nuked twice, and they have this like beautiful civilization, and this beautiful country, and they're getting along so well. And then you look at the British, who supposedly defeated them, and it's like pure chaos.
And again, when the politicians here in Canada and the UK tell you it's like this everywhere in the world, they're lying. They're obviously lying. Like, it's absolutely beautiful in Tokyo and Osaka. Absolutely beautiful. And crime, basically, you know how many sirens I heard in 10 days? How many sirens I heard? I heard 2 sirens in the major city, 2 sirens, and there were ambulances both times. You can't even walk around
the biggest homicide investigations. The biggest homicide investigations are to do with bears, aren't they? The bears in Hokkaido starting to kill people. That's the biggest sort of crime story in Japan.
They walk through the trains as like the conductors or the people that check things just to make sure everything's on the up and up or whatever. And they turn around and they bow every time the door closes between the carts. And everybody is so polite and so helpful. They were very helpful to us the few times that we got lost. The food is cheap, and the food is good. It's the way to do it. It is absolutely the way to do it. And their transit system is like second to none. Like, it's absolutely incredible. And we can't even do transit here. We can't even do buses. So I don't know. It's a crazy world. How do they do it?
But don't worry, we're going to have high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto anytime soon. It's going to happen.
We don't even have a #1 highway across Canada that's 2-lane across Canada. How many people have to die between Calgary and Kelowna through that golden area there before they actually twin that highway? How many?
Also have some of the best oil reserves, maybe after only Venezuela, in terms of long-lasting oil reserves in the west of Canada. And we don't have a pipeline from the west to the population center in the east so that we can pump oil to the east. It's, in terms of infrastructure, there's just so much lacking, isn't there?
And then one of the commenters is and one of the things that my son noticed was no tipping in Japan. And so that was, because here, you go to Starbucks, you go through the drive-through at Starbucks, and they want 18 to 20% tip on that $10 coffee.
Yeah.
And then one of the things very popular, 7-Eleven. Just about every corner there's a 7-Eleven. But they sell everything from, Japanese food to whatever. But 7-Eleven's everywhere. And vending machines, like, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And transit, just absolutely everywhere. So crazy. And here in Canada, first-time homebuyers have rarely had it worse. And here's the real estate, here's another graph here by Wealthsimple. Real estate price index is falling a bit because obviously we're seeing some trouble in the housing industry, which is where most Canadian wealth is held. The food price index continues to rise. The median household income index, that's the laggard. Look at that, eh? So that's your ability to afford it and the CPI average. So good job. Who's ever running the government? Good job. Nope. Terrible.
Well, thank God for the guys in charge. Did the old switcheroo, and now nobody attributes this guy.
One of the things, I'm going to add one more thing about what I did notice in Japan is they really value people. Like, a lot of the hotels and companies and that still have lots of people that don't, that have been gotten rid of here in Canada. Like, they have, in the hotels, they have a couple people that just direct you, and, all kinds of stuff. And the uniform is very snappy. I don't know if you've ever seen Japanese Airlines as well, very well dressed. And they definitely, dress smart, play sharp. That's what when I used to coach, I would say dress sharp, play sharp. And they still believe in that too. And they have a lot of that going on there in Japan. And they really believe in their culture, which is a great thing. And here we're told, we don't even like our flag sometimes. So, one last chart here.
They do have a controversial flag in Japan, the Rising Sun one. That's seen as a battle flag, isn't it?
Yes, and I did buy. I went to Shinbao as well, then one of the more popular areas, and I got a picture of Godzilla on top of one of the buildings there. Maybe I'll show it tomorrow. Godzilla there is, attacking. Go Go Godzilla, an old Blue Oyster Cult song. If you remember Blue Oyster Cult, Go Go Godzilla.
Okay, yeah.
Who sparked the baby? What sparked the baby boom? Flushable toilets. And here's another chart here from Wealthsimple. They got some great charts actually, and it shows you, some of the things that took off: electric lighting, running water, central heating, fridges and all that kind of stuff. And it was in the late 60s, 70s that we still had no electricity. When I was in grade 1, we had no electricity and no running water when I lived in Fort Vermilion. So,
wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
I was one of the last people, I guess.
But I don't know if it's quite a jump they've made there to associate the baby boom with that. I mean, there's so many different reasons for why that happened. Like the end of the Depression, relief because of the war, sense of purpose because of the war, and the sort of rise in nationalism. I mean, there's loads of theories as to why. I'm sure it didn't hurt though, being able to have enough feeling like you're more comfortable. But then I would say now we're more comfortable than we've ever been, and yet we're having fewer kids than we've ever had in history. So I don't know really if there's causation there.
This is my first day back, and it's obviously going to be a longer show. We had a little bit to catch up on, and so we'll probably go a little long today. And again, like, subscribe, share. That'd be great. Vanity projects. That is one of the Liberals' strength for sure. And here's our Governor General. Budgets, millions for an ice rink. Mary Simon, she wants to install an open-air skating pavilion at Rideau Hall with artificial ice and a decorative roof to protect it from, ready? Climate change. The cost estimates range between $4 to $8 million. That's from a staff email. One sole source contract for $377,000 was awarded to a supplier, and that's to install the refrigerated ice system. And these are all just vanity projects here, and now they're trying to get corporate donations for this from basically crown corporations. So Governor General asked federally regulated corporations for money to build the $4 million Rideau Hall ice pavilion, and donors were offered. This is what you get if you give money: invitations to her official residence. Wow, nice, eh? A commemorative photo with her and a personal thank you letter. Just like that, eh? Hey? And then she can put her name on a nice skating rink that's protected from climate change.
And they say that this is for the public, or they try and pretend it's for the public. Rideau Hall, anyone that knows Ottawa knows that Rideau Hall is in basically a gated community within Ottawa where all the rich people live, like where Mark Carney lives, where Mark Miller lives. All the boys, all the lads,
Laurentian elite,
live there. So how is that for the public? The average person in Ottawa is not going to be able to get to Rockcliffe Park, or probably not going to be inclined to do that. Maybe if you built it in Barhaven, Mary Simon, people would approve.
Yeah, and then so that likely she wants to screw her name to this, a plaque onto this Rideau Hall. Skating is a classic Canadian activity, and Rideau Hall has a strong, interesting history of winter recreation. And just what the Canadians need right now, instead of a better economy. Elizabeth May back in the news there saying she voted for that budget and was a mistake and it won't happen again, right? We'll believe you, Elizabeth May, because you are definitely Canada's most sincere politician.
I was watching the video earlier of when she gave that speech in 2015, where she was definitely not drunk and she had to be dragged off the stage just to treat myself to some Elizabeth May entertainment. But yeah, this is she's quite strange. I mean, she's all over the place. Talk about people that don't know what they're doing or where they are. The last time we spoke about Elizabeth May, before you went to Japan, I'm pretty sure it was you and me, wasn't it? We were talking about how she was complimenting Mark Carney and saying what a great guy he was, and she was saying he's not known to be somebody that says something and then doesn't do it, or says one thing and does another thing. He's not known for that. And then now, a couple of weeks later, she's saying basically very thin mask, but she's basically saying that he's a liar and he lied to her.
Yeah, she said.
All right, then. So she's a good judge of character then.
One thing that you can count on Mark Carney, he's truthful. He says what it is, and now, what is that? A week later, 10 days later, he's a liar. Good job, Elizabeth.
But I guess that we have a representative democracy where we elect a representative, and that representative is supposed to then use that. We're supposed to elect them for their judgment, basically, so that they can then use their judgment. It's not a direct democracy where we tell them what to do. So Elizabeth basically just revealed that she doesn't understand human beings. She can't tell what a person's character is. And she even said about Mark Carney, she said, "I've known him for a very long time." That was one of the words. That was one of the phrases she used when she was talking about him. I mean, yeah, I would say she's discredited herself, but what is there left to discredit?
I had a puzzled look on my face right there when she said she discredited herself. I'm just like, wouldn't she need to have built up some credit first? The National Post. Meet the IMF economist. Remember they dragged her out there when Jason Jacks said that this is stupefying, unsustainable, and all those nice words to describe the budget. But they dragged her out there, the IMF economist, a major influence on Carney's big spending ways. She's also apparently a graduate of the Karl Marx Institute of Economics. Why not, right? Why not?
Well, talking about credibility, this woman was also rebuked by the then Democratic Party's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, I'm pretty sure it was, when she was found to have manipulated the data at the World Bank so that China and I think Saudi Arabia, like two not very friendly Western countries, so that they would look better to investors. So they looked like they were more like business friendly. And she came out, she came out and apologized for it, or something along those lines. It's a bit of a mea culpa. I mean, again, failing upwards and lacking credibility. And we wonder, I'm bored of myself now, but we wonder why there's so little faith in institutions. Why do you think? For God's sake.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police drone fleet. This is from Hollywood Blacklock's fleet too risky. Guess where they bought them from? Oh, yep, China. The Mounties misspent millions on China-made drones that are now compromised as high security risks. That's from an internal report. Replacing the Chinese fleet would cost the taxpayers another $34 million. Awesome. The current replacement model
what's most hilarious about this story is they tried to make out like everything was fine and dandy, and then in 2023, that's when they discovered, like, hey guys, maybe the Chinese Communist Party is not our friend. In 2023, these are our police overlords. This is how smart they are. They figured out in 2023 that maybe you can't trust the Chinese Communist Party. I'm glad that they're here to protect us, stupid peasants.
And yeah, and Mark Carney said in his election campaign there that China's the biggest security risk. And then they came out recently saying that China is one of the world leaders in climate change. How do you believe these people? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, does it? And how we have to.
What I would love is I would just love honesty. I would love them to say, yes, China is a massive threat. Obviously, it's like it's our number one threat, and it's our number one civilizational opponent in the whole world. But it's also the second biggest economy, and we're not stupid. We want to make money, so we're going to have a very pragmatic, realistic relationship. I think that's sort of Carney's position, his actual honest position. But why didn't he say that when he was trying to get elected to lead the country? Why wasn't he honest then? That's the sin is the lie. It's the lack of honesty.
Another one from Hollywood Blacklocks. They studied the impacts of lockdowns. Surprise, surprise, boomers. Are you ready? Not only did you sell out Canada in the election there and sold out the youth, you did it as well during COVID when you screamed to be locked down and you screamed that everybody be locked up. And the kids are the ones that paid the penalty for it. Bruce Squires, president of McMaster Children's Hospital, testified in 2022 hearings that children were waiting as long as 2.5 years to access specialized mental health services, inpatient admissions. Canada's children and youth have borne the brunt, said Squires. Their development, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual, has been impacted severely by learning loss, reductions in access to physical activity, social isolation, and delays in access to care. And the data is striking. Again, we need to stop being selfish and worry about our youth. That is our future. And it seems like the boomers have decided to sell out our youth for their own needs and comfort. Many times. In
many areas, certainly children have got the raw end, haven't they? And I think COVID it has to be the worst example, because we knew pretty much right away that it didn't affect kids. And yet they were still imprisoned in their homes, prevented from gathering, couldn't go to school in many cases. I mean, the British COVID inquiry that cost hundreds of millions of dollars so that they could state the obvious, they focused quite a lot on children actually, and said that it was a really catastrophic betrayal of children, and that the government should sort of apologize for it. And it was, obviously, I mean, God knows what damage has been done to those children. God knows if they'll ever recover. They're probably going to carry that with them for the rest of their lives.
Well, another one here. Dentacare is 50% over budget. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I think Gomer Pyle said it. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Dentacare, 50% over budget. Federal dental care programs is 50% over budget. The Department of Health acknowledged it underestimated the volume of claims, now expected to be over $4 billion. Actually, about $4.8 billion. management of that canal, you know, and even this here, this is shocking one that we did this story like a couple months ago, right? The management of the plan is $500 million so far. Just the $473 million just to manage the plan. Who are they giving these contracts to? Just absolute. What are you gonna say? Carnage? What is that? Like how do you have that much money just going for the management of the plan? Like I'm willing to do it.
It's almost just like
I'll do it for half.
I'm starting to wonder if the Liberals just really believe in like quantitative easing, and they're just trying to get money into the system, and they don't care how they do it. It's like they must have known this was never going to work. But I almost feel like it's just like get the money out there, get it out the door.
Who reads contracts anyway? $15 billion for Stellantis. Who reads? Who reads? And then if that's not enough, here's Gregor Robertson, the old Vancouver mayor there. He's decided that everybody loves a junket, and he okayed $97,000 for an inspiration kind of get-together. He sent some managers on a 2-day conference on homelessness for inspiration. I'll tell you what, could have went to Japan and asked them, where's the homelessness? Ask them what they're doing. That'd be the best thing to do. Access to information records show $33,000 just for hotels, another $9,000 for restaurant meals. Eating well. There you go.
To raise awareness about homelessness. I mean, it's a good idea, isn't it? I mean, who in Canada actually knows anything about homelessness or has ever seen it or worried about it? I mean, it's a real like fringe issue, isn't it? Homelessness in Canada. So definitely worth that money, I would say.
Gregor Robertson maybe should have been listening to Tim Hodgson when he made that cavalier comment. It's called Zoom. Why do they need to go on a junket when they can use Zoom if they need that? But they can also maybe send 1 or 2 people to Tokyo and say, how do they do it? How are they doing it? Because they have a population that's what? 4 times ours? Must be doing something.
About that. Well, 3 times maybe, yeah.
Well, 140 million. There you go.
I thought it's declined quite a lot lately, hasn't it?
Well, last time I checked,
124 million. So it's about 3 times Canada's population.
They took my name. Pierre Poilievre showed up at the Parliamentary Gallery. You didn't get invited to that yet. The press gallery there having a big function, and Pierre showed up. We're going to play a small clip of this. Maybe we'll jump ahead a few times here because Pierre actually did very well with the humor. He basically, one of those nights you can be sarcastic and they kind of have to laugh. We'll play a small clip of it.
So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the only person who misses Justin Trudeau more than Susan Delacourt, the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre.
It's a long clip. It's like 16 minutes. Pierre's got it on his X account. You should go watch it. This hour is 22 minutes. Guy got up there first on stage, and like Pierre's doppelganger, I guess. But Pierre took some shots there, but he actually, whoever wrote his speech there actually did a decent job there because it was pretty funny.
I think it would have been him. I mean, when I had that conversation with his old press manager, I mean, he take it with a pinch of salt, but he said that Poilievre insists on writing everything himself, and it has to be his, otherwise he won't do it. And I'm sort of inclined to believe that because he is pretty consistent in the sort of things that he says, and certainly his jokes. I mean, he repeats the same jokes over and over again when he's on a tour. But he said something there that rubbed people up the wrong way when he was saying, I can't even remember what it was, but he made some kind of joke about Queers for Palestine.
Yeah.
That sort of strange oxymoron. Yeah. And people were unhappy about that. He also made a joke about Elizabeth May slurping the booze, which is quite funny.
He made quite a few jokes, and he trashed the media pretty good in the room as well. Well deserved on that, though. And here's our friend Danielle Smith there saying that she wants the castle law in Alberta. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Today that next week our UCP government will be introducing a new motion under the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act that will, if passed in the legislature, instruct all provincial entities, including our municipalities and law enforcement agencies, to refuse to enforce or prosecute under the federal gun seizure program. Now, the Sovereignty Act motion will also make it clear that these agencies will not enforce or prosecute Albertans defending their homes and families from intruders.
There you go. So don't touch our guns and castle law, basically.
Can you imagine showing that to somebody in like the 19th century or the 18th century? Just saying, yeah, like, look how excited this crowd is because this woman is saying, to give them the power to defend their own home if they're attacked. They'd be like, what are you talking about, you idiot? Like, obviously everyone can do that. It's so strange, isn't it, that this is even a thing, that you have to push so hard just to give people a legal defense to resist an invader in their own home. What madness.
Somebody just said they also sent Stephen Fear a letter that went unanswered. I believe maybe one of the qualifications to be a Liberal MP is you must be illiterate, because they don't read contracts, obviously don't read email requests for interviews or emails at all. So maybe that's the problem.
That's for the little people to do, isn't it?
Yeah, anyway, castle law. And in Toronto, the police chief there, remember, he advised people to leave their keys at the front door, so when the thieves broke into your home, that they would have easy access to the keys and they wouldn't come into the rest of your home. You just put a sign there and then they can just steal your keys and your car without invading the rest of your space. I said, I put out a post on LinkedIn and I put my key fobs on a couple of wolfhounds, and I said, you can take the keys off these dogs. They haven't been fed. Please feed them before you take the keys. I think that's what. But likely in Toronto you get charged for that, though.
It's just, again, like trying to explain this to Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, something like that, trying to explain that this is what the English common law system has degenerated into. This is how terrible your descendants are, that they literally advise people. The people that are supposed to protect them then advises the citizenry to make it easier for thieves to steal their stuff. It's just such craziness, isn't it? This is like, if this came out of North Korea or something, we would be talking about how much we pitied the North Koreans, wouldn't we? But it happens to be this country.
I'm telling you right now, it's the corrupted and crippled media that lend to this, because they're going to be attacking Danielle Smith over this when this just makes sense to most people. And here's another one where she's saying she's going to prioritize Albertans first for jobs as opposed to immigrants. And she got this cheer. And if Mark Miller heard that, he would be calling her a racist and a whole bunch of other ists. Let's listen to what Danielle Smith says on passing a law that says you're prioritizing Albertans first.
Using our constitutionally protected provincial rights, Alberta will return to a more stable number of primarily economic migrants so that newcomers come here to work and contribute as they have historically done, while Canadian citizens living in Alberta are given first priority to the jobs and the opportunities our economy creates. We will restore the proper balance and ensure that our immigration system becomes a strength to our province again. And although right-sizing Alberta's growth rate is critical, our province cannot afford to delay.
That's good. Who would have thought protecting your home, protecting your rights to own a gun, and also putting Canadians first would be controversial? Who would have thought?
That's what I mean. We've just fallen so far, or maybe some people would say we've risen so high, but we've changed to such a dramatic extent that this would have been inconceivable even a couple of decades ago, wouldn't it? That this would be such a sort of political event, such an issue. So strange. To relate to this conference, I don't think we're going to talk about it, are we, later on in this? But it's important to bear in mind that she was booed, wasn't she, at least once when
the carbon
when she was trying to talk about the oil deal and how it meant Ottawa can still work with Alberta or whatever. Like, it's really important to remember that. I was reading something about the internal predictions within the UCP, that 75% of the membership want to leave Canada, are pro-separation. That's just a remarkable statistic, that, I think. That's probably not even the whole, that's probably not even accurate, is it? It's probably more like 80 plus. That is astonishing. Like, talk about emergencies and existential crises and things. Like, that should be what the Prime Minister talks about every single day. The first topic of discussion at all of his cabinet meetings should be, how do we make sure that Alberta doesn't separate? It's not a fantasy anymore, is it? Like, it has legs.
And here's the poll that just came out. Liberals still lead in the polls, thanks to the, guess what, the over 60s. Imagine that. The boomers selling out Canadians and the youth for, again, so that they can live in their comfort and not want change. There you go. And if we get that next chart up there, it shows you the breakdown and shows you the 60 and over have sold out the Canadian youth.
Which is the largest demographic, isn't it, as well? Of those four, I'm pretty sure 60 and over will be the largest, and also the most likely to vote as well. So that counts for a lot. That what is that, a 15-point lead?
And you don't
pretty
have to,
consequential.
You don't have to believe me, but you can go take a look around Toronto, Vancouver, and walk around downtown Kelowna and different places. And we're going to play this clip here without music, though. We're going to play without sound, and they're going to play this, and this is what goes on. And I didn't see any of this in Tokyo. And I went all over Tokyo, and I went over Osaka. And like I said, I was walking around at 3 in the morning because I get up early, and there was no workout place. They didn't open till later, so that's how I went for like 2-hour walks. Never saw any of this going on in Tokyo. Or Osaka, or, you know what I mean? Like, how is there a Canadian society just in the people that are living off this machine of decriminalization of drugs, and just like, you know, Olivia Chow dancing all the time in Toronto instead of like looking at the real issues? Our society, like, I mean,
because
Japanese people are shocked. And I talked to a friend here from Japan that, you know, they said a lot of people came here from Japan for opportunity, but he said a lot of them want to go home now because they don't feel safe in Canada, and you know, they're missing, like, safety in Japan is like unbelievable. Like, I mean, you feel safe. Like, I felt safe walking around in a strange country, which I knew nothing about, but I felt very safe, and I rarely even seen a policeman. Like, I mean, I think there's a couple standing on street corners every now and then. I found it funny. Like, I saw one as I was driving in the bus to the airport. There's a car accident, and they were standing there, and the 2 police officers were in a car, but they had motorcycle helmets on, so they drive around with helmets on. Very safe.
But the thing is, a lot of people are inclined nowadays just to say something along the lines of, oh yeah, that's Japan, like, that's just a cultural thing, we're different, we have a different culture. Not true necessarily, because it's not that long ago that Canada was like Japan, and England was famous. Like, London was famous around the whole world, and like lots of people, you can see like Gandhi and people like that about it, and how awestruck they were by how orderly and civilized and clean London was. And the same is true of Canada, and also parts of the US as well. This is something that we had and we've lost. And I think, you know, you mentioned Olivia Chow there doing nothing about it. She is doing something, or trying to do something about it, what she thinks is right. I think the problem is Olivia Chow and the rest of the governing elite in Canada and other Western countries have no moral sense. They've lost their moral sense. And they don't know the difference between right and wrong. And I mean every word I just said there, precisely. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. In Japan, they still do. I'm pretty sure that's it. That's the difference.
It's absolutely, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, when they stand there and they tell you that it's like this in every other G7 nation, that Canada's not different, they're absolutely lying. Like, I mean, they know. I mean, you gotta take the blinders off. You gotta stop listening to the rhetoric and the lies and all all the nonsense and just get out there and look. And you ask yourself, who's had the wheel for 10 years? Who's had the wheel? Have things gotten better? Things gotten worse? How many families do you know that are suffering? I know lots. I hear it from lots of people. Lots of people reach out to me. Lots of people are really suffering. Sure, the elite are doing really well because they're taking from the government. If you're living off government subsidies and that, like, you're doing well. Taking those big bonuses, big checks, all that kind of stuff, living off of that. BC should be a rich province too. We're going to move on to our BC news here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And here's our friend Premier Eby being interviewed by Vasi Kapelis there on Question Period.
The Nutrien decision gets me agitated because instead of Premier Scott Moe calling me up, engaging with me about this huge billion-dollar decision about whether to ship potash out of British Columbia or out of Washington State, he was engaging with Danielle Smith on this non-existent pipeline project. I didn't hear from the federal government about the Nutrien decision. I had no idea that there was even a prospect that this company would consider putting themselves in the hands of Donald Trump to have tariffs or ban of potash being shipped out of Washington State. And they made the decision, apparently, to ship out of Washington State instead of out of British Columbia. We should have been talking about their concerns about clogged up rail lines and access to the port. We should have been front of the line advocating with Saskatchewan, with the federal government for resources around rail to deal with that. But instead, it was a huge amount of energy went into this non-existent pipeline project. And my worry is we're taking our eyes off the prize. The Nutrien decision.
That's good. Nobody wants to talk to him because you can't get anything done. Like, I mean, here, this is an absolute travesty that Nutrien decided to go to Washington, but I mean, you can see why. Why wouldn't they want to talk to Eby? Because it's nothing but red tape, regulations, and nonsense.
But it's just the hypocrisy. I mean, the words that come out of his mouth don't mean anything because we know who he is. We know what party he's in. He says all energy's been sucked up by discussion about this non-existent pipeline. What about distant pipeline, TMX, that you and your party and your government spent every ounce of energy it had trying to block? Obviously, it doesn't matter whether it's existent or non-existent. The NDP will still oppose it. But he's just deciding now that that's his rationale, that's his excuse, and he's sticking to it. I'm going to try and think of anything cleverer. But yeah, I mean, as for Nutrien, it's not just about trains, is it? It's also about regulation. It's also just about, it's about investor confidence, that general term, in British Columbia. Who's got any? Who's got any investor confidence in British Columbia? I mean, not many people. It's completely understandable. And then it's things like the port workers at Vancouver Port who strike every second week, it seems. Like, there are so many problems, so many issues, and his party, usually anyway, tends to come out in favor of people on strike, doesn't it? It's supposed to be the Workers' Party. It's just like, David Eby is just, I can't take him seriously. I can't do it. I can't lower myself to that level. And I don't know if there's anybody in Canadian politics that takes him seriously either. I mean, the evidence suggests no. Scott Moe, Danielle Smith, Mark Carney, like, nobody cares. Nobody cares what David Eby has to say. They're all just going over his head. And that kind of tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Well, BC has isolated itself, and it's also, with what's going on with the that land decision too, it's become very uncertain for people to invest in British Columbia, and David Eby leads that. Like, we've done some interviews, Jeff Moyes saying basically, like, David Eby has a few advisors in his office there that they are definitely not looking out for the interests of British Columbians. David Eby has his own agenda, not much different than Stephen Guilbeault. They are driven by their own agenda, not what's in the interests of British Columbians. And I would say that for the CBC as well. They're not driven by the interests of Canadians. They're driven by their own interests and how to fill the trough and how to take from the trough. But with that said, let's move on to our international news. Lots going on in international news.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
So kicking it off, we do have Witkoff and Kushner in Moscow for direct peace talks. It sounds like this thing is getting closer and closer. Obviously, the European Union losing its mind because it's not really involved, because it's impossible to get anything done with the European Union. They seem to like the idea of war, but the U.S. delegation is now at the Kremlin, and we were going to play a clip, but it's not that necessary. It's just a clip of them arriving there at the Kremlin there. But bigger news than that, though, is this massive buildup of the American military machine there surrounding Venezuela, and apparently Trump had a call with Maduro. And Maduro asked for, this is according to Jesse Waters, had a few options. Let's play a small clip of this from Jesse Waters at Fox.
Day. Sources say Maduro's been praying to Jesus. That's the narco-terrorist, socialist dictator who took over for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela and keeps flooding American streets with migrants, gangs, and cocaine. 11 U.S. warships, including our largest carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, are now in the Caribbean. Venezuela is surrounded. The strike group is waiting on orders from the commander-in-chief as the president's holding high-level meetings at the White House, calculating our next move against the narco state. The choice is Maduro's. Trump's giving him an ultimatum: abdicate power or else. After Trump's phone call with the dictator, that's the best offer.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about it?
No, I can't do that.
Mr. President, would you say it went well?
I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
I mean, there's talk that Maduro asked for a few deals. He wanted control of the military. And I think the Trump administration said no. There's a few things they asked for, and it was just basically get out. And it looks like this thing is heating up, and it looks like it's going to get hot pretty quick here. But Maduro made a speech as well to his populace. Here's a little clip of that.
Nicolás, eat the peace. Nicolás, eat the peace. Mira la changa esa, no tiene la changa. ¿Ustedes han visto la changa? Peace, forever, forever, forever. Decirle al pueblo de Estados Unidos, no a la guerra. No queremos una guerra en el Caribe ni en Sudamérica.
That's good, that's good, that's good. While you drive your nation's people into poverty, dance in the streets. Olivia Chow must have learned that from Maduro there, or they learned it from each other. They go to this place where you drive your population into poverty. They always got dance.
He was also saying at the end there, to the people of the United States, no war. It's like, what effect do you think that's going to have? But the Pope, who's also an American, he came out just now, a couple hours ago, saying no war, no guerra.
Well, that machine is parked at the doorstep and it's ramping up. And I think Maduro made some calls to China and Russia. No go. Not interested. Sorry.
It just, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, that Venezuela's lasted this long, the Chavez and Maduro regimes, that they've actually lasted this long. Because, again, my favorite activity in life, look at a map. Venezuela is so close to Florida, to the US. It's kind of amazing that America's tolerated it for this long. Because the Americans have this proprietorial attitude towards what they call the hemisphere, which is the entire Americas. That goes back hundreds of years, like way, way back to John Monroe or James Monroe, whatever his name was. They take it quite seriously. They don't want an enemy there. They don't want somebody that could, invite somebody like China or Russia, some kind of serious opponent, to come in. Hence the hostile attitude to Cuba as well. So, I mean, if they have an opportunity to turf this fella, then it makes perfect geopolitical sense that they would do that.
Let's not forget the lady they handed the Nobel Peace Prize to. Also wants the Americans to go in there and remove Maduro.
Which one's that?
The one that got the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah, the opposition leader, yeah.
Yeah, she said she won the election, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of Venezuelans. I mean, it must be the majority that want to get rid of Maduro. Because they've been brought to their knees, the Venezuelans, as we've discussed many times. That's another country that should be wealthy.
was one of the richest countries in South America, brought to its knees by socialism and corruption. A lot of people lost 90% of their wealth if they were locked into Venezuelan dollars. I think it's Bolivier, right? But here's your friend, Keir Starmer now, regretting leaving Brexit.
There was a broad consensus about Britain's role in the world, a consensus that transcended party politics and sometimes deep disagreements over specific issues. We were of one mind that Britain should be outward-looking, engaged and active on the world stage, a powerful voice at the top table. That was taken as a given, part of who we are, in line with the greatest traditions of this country, as British as fish and chips or the Guildhall itself. But then Brexit broke that consensus. I want to speak very frankly. The Brexit vote was a fair, democratic expression, and I will always respect that. But how it was sold and delivered was wrong.
That's good. If King Arthur was alive, he'd go and remove him from the stage and say, "That's enough of you, you fool."
I mean, the idea that he's in a position to talk about something, a political offering being missold, and he's just almost every day of his time as Prime Minister has been a betrayal of what he promised in the election. But also this idea he's talking about British tradition being outward facing and all the rest of it. What does that have to do with the European Union? The European Union is insular. Britain is much more outward facing, and it always has been. The European Union, the continent, is very insular. And when Britain was part of that, many people argued, it was prevented from its, natural position of being outward facing. It's just so much about that was ridiculous and wrong. And he's also talking about, he said, British traditions like fish and chips and the Guildhall, and it's like we turned our back on those traditions. His government has just today officially announced that it's getting rid of jury trial for most offences, or many offences. Anyway, what could be more of an English tradition than jury trial? I mean, seriously, it's like older than the English language.
Well, I mean,
it's
it
absurd.
is also
This man is just completely off his rocker.
I mean, English law, common law, it's all based in common law, and they just seem to want to take away more and more rights all the time. Like I said, if King Arthur was alive, he'd remove him from the stage and say, "That's enough out of you, you fool." And he seems like he's in a Monty Python skit, if anything. But here's some more from I love putting him on because every now and then you'll break into his little, you'll do it, because you do a great impersonation of Keir, but let's listen to him first here.
That poses real national security threats to the United Kingdom. With all that in mind, the absence of engagement is just staggering.
That's good enough from him. But he also recognizes China as a risk, and like you said, recognizes it, but recognizes also that we have to do business with China.
Yeah, but they're just so foolish, aren't they? They don't seem to understand how to be honest about it. That's my primary concern. And then they don't really understand how to treat China, how to go about it, having a relationship with China. And when they insist on the human rights stuff and all the rest of it, like, either you want a relationship with China or you don't. If you want a relationship with China, shut up about human rights. They're not going to listen. The only thing it's going to do is annoy them and make them more antagonistic. So either stick to your principles and don't have a relationship with them and lecture them about human rights, or do have a relationship and shut up and keep it economic and commercial, But this is just, he's one of many, isn't he? He's in many ways kind of the exemplar of the ruling elite in the West for the last at least sort of 30 years. Just so far out of his depth, has nothing in common with the people that he rules, doesn't really know anything about the world, and as I said earlier, does not know the difference between right and wrong.
I'd like to see the WhatsApp for Starmer, Macron, and Carney, because I'm sure the three amigos there are always, saying who could do something stupider on the day. But they don't talk straight. They're not straight with their voting public. But here's one guy that is, I definitely think one of the Sir Elton John, one of the greats out there, also said that Canada, one of its biggest mistakes was legalizing pot, and I'd have to agree with him on that one. But here's Elton John on the Trump. Sir Elton John, I should say.
I know that you're not a supporter of Donald Trump's. He loves your music. How did it feel when he took the lyrics to Rocket Man and he used it as a nickname for Kim Jong-un, and then he gave Kim Jong-un
I laughed. I thought it was brilliant. I just thought, good on you, Donald. I'm the Rocket Man, yeah. Donald's always been a fan of mine, and he's been to my concerts many, many times. So, I've always been friendly towards him, and I thank him for his...
That's good. I just wanted to put him in there because, here's a guy that actually talks straight. You don't have enough straight-talking people. And the Rocket Man there has his share of, past dalliances in the drug world. And, he came out and said that Canada made a mistake by legalizing pot. And we see that in many of the youth today. And, some of them developing psychosis from it as well. So... Another
Elton John, the only straight guy in the room.
Yeah. There you go.
I do think that's funny. When you said that, that's enough. I thought that was them, because it's like, no, this is not what we want to hear. We don't want to hear you say nice things about Trump.
There you go. And check this out. This is in Colorado, one of the Democratic states. Colorado. Check this out. This is from a Colorado woman. And this is again, energy is everything. This is what the piece that I want you to recognize. Energy is everything. Listen to this.
The gas is $1.82, and I just paid under $16 for the gas. Colorado. I'm literally shocked.
That works out.
I'm not sure how much that's to do with Donald Trump, but I'm sure he'll take it.
They have driven down the cost of energy by drill, baby, drill, and that is 66 cents a liter. Canada's gas should be cheap. In Dubai, it's like almost free. Energy is everything. Cheap energy.
Subsidized quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
And here's some hope for you. We're going to end it with a little bit of hope. And SpaceX has received approval to develop Space Launch Complex 37 for Starship operations at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So this is SpaceX working with the U.S. Air Force, the 45th Space Force, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for their effort in environmental review. So they're going to put 3 launch pads in there into, you can play the little clip here. I think you can play it. Oh, there you go. Look at that. I know there's no sound because it doesn't need sound. It's just epic. Anyway, Canada's space. What do we give? We gave the Europeans some money for what are they going to do? What do we give them? $500 million?
Something like that, yeah.
And then we kept about 100 something million for ourselves in our own space thing. What do you think we're going to get done? Again, I'm not sure.
It's going to be invested in Oxford, isn't it?
They went and bought some bottle rockets. You ever use a bottle rocket? And the other thing,
yeah.
The media working overtime to buy the Gripens. Here's some F-35s doing Overwatch during a SpaceX launch at Kennedy Space Center. Here's a different view of the SpaceX launch. There you go. There's a cockpit view out of an F-35. The jets that Canada promised to buy in 2015. Still hand-wringing over those. And now it looks like there's so much media pressure to buy the Gripen here from the liberal elite there that want to whatever they want to do, stick sticks in the eye. And here's the shocking one from my son, who's like I guess he leans more liberal. When we were in Japan, you can take that picture down for a sec. When we were in Japan, he said there's American flags everywhere. They love America here. It's just he couldn't believe how much love of America was there. Like lots in the store shops, American flags flying everywhere. And I said to him, who do you think protects Japan? They recognize that their protection is afforded to them by the United States of America. They sit under the umbrella of protection of the United States of America. So they are thankful for the United States of America. Canada is in the same position. Are we not under the protection of the United States of America? Yeah, we choose to stick sticks in their eyes as opposed to trying to work with them. Isn't that weird? It's odd, isn't it?
It's a sense of, you could say, entitlement almost, isn't it? The Japanese learned the hard way what happens when you're on the wrong side of the Americans. And there's still quite a lot of anti-Americanism in Japan. Let's not forget. Places like Okinawa, they're not big fans of the Americans, but in general, their elite at least recognizes that America is their only hope if they're going to resist China.
If you think of, if anybody had a reason to hate America, I mean, 2 atomic weapons were detonated in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You would think that that would be reason enough, like 100,000 people in a blink. And again,
but, it's geopolitics, isn't it? It's just, it's obvious. I mean, somebody here is saying Stockholm Syndrome. I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but I mean, they were comprehensively defeated by the Americans, and then the Americans went in and wrote a constitution for them and everything, and like supervised their state for 10 years at least, and occupied the country. They still kind of occupy Japan.
I mean, the military
some
base
say anyway. They still have troops there, but just geopolitically, again, get your maps out, guys. Geopolitically, America wants to contain China, and Japan wants to resist China. Just look at a map. Like, objective number 1, if you want to contain China, is be friends with Japan. And objective number 1, if you're Japan and you want to resist China, is be friends with the United States. It's just like, it's a natural marriage.
Again, like I said, there was the United States flags flying all over the place there. There was U.S. flags everywhere. And the brands are there. I mean, obviously, a lot of the American brands are big everywhere in the world. A lot, like the brands, like, he was kind of shocked at the, because, like the animosity here in Canada towards America is just next level from lots of people, especially the boomers, right? They're just like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I just think it's like Justin Trudeau said when he went to America for some reason to do interviews when he was dodging interviews in Canada. He explained to some talk show host or something, didn't he? He was like, one of the main sort of parts of Canadian identity, of being Canadian, is that you're not American. I mean, he said it himself. I think that's a ridiculous thing to say.
Clownish.
But I do think that represents quite a lot of people's opinions. I really do. I think that for a lot of Canadians, that is true. As strange as that is, as weird as that is. And because of that, that's why we have this, it's like hyper emotional, isn't it? It's almost like, it's like a family argument. And that, they can usually be the most intense and the most sort of vicious. And that's kind of what we're seeing.
If it wasn't, this is for everybody here, if it wasn't for the United States of America, Canada would be one of the weakest nations in the world when it comes to military might. And it would be one of the easiest to pick on. Large landmass, not a lot of people to protect it. No equipment.
Look, we couldn't live like this. We couldn't live as we do. The whole society would have to change. Everything would have to change. And that means, the kind of policies that are put in place, approach to energy, approach to food, approach to the military, there'd have to be conscription. We'd have to have nuclear weapons straight away. I mean, everything would change. The way that we kind of acquiesce constantly to Quebec's demands, certain First Nation demands, all of that would disappear overnight, because those are luxuries that we're afforded thanks to the Americans who take care of the militarism side of things, so we don't have to worry about that sort of thing.
And then someone just said that, Canada wanted to stay British. Britain has no military machine that is even close to what America has. I mean, you have to recognize that we're under the protection of the United States of America. And that, I mean, the good thing is that we happen to be their protection because we're the landmass in between them and many of its rivals. And, but we should also recognize and wake up every morning and thank them because we've neglected our military. We don't have a military to speak of. We have old equipment and an undermanned, underpaid, underfunded, under. And it's time that Canadians can wake up to the reality of the world. And the Liberals have been lying to us. Again, that going to Tokyo for 10 days, go there and see for yourself. When the politicians tell you that it's like this everywhere, stop saying it's bad. It's not. It's not like this everywhere. They've chosen to do this.
And it doesn't have to be.
They've made decisions that make it like this here in Canada. What you tolerate is what you get. What you focus on is what you get. David Eby is not looking out for the best interests of British Columbia. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt about it that Mark Carney has some conflicts that maybe don't have him looking out the best interests of Canada. When you're still putting people like Mark Miller back in cabinet, you're not looking out for the best interests of Canada. Again, like, subscribe. That's our show for today. Well, we did have one more last piece here because he's getting a lot of heat for this. Poor Wayne Gretzky, the great one there, playing some golf with Trump, getting slagged on. He's done lots for Canada. So before you start slagging a guy like that all the time, maybe thank him for what he's done for Canada as well. Stop being so sanctimonious and virtue signaling. To the great one. Uh-oh, there's the great one.
It's my sixth son.
The great awakening.
Time.
To the great one who brought many Stanley Cup dreams to Canada. And we had a drought here for a while. Be thankful for what we have as opposed to always being angry. That's our show for today. We're back tomorrow at 9 a.m. every morning. And we do appreciate you, and we'd like you to share it and help us get a bigger voice so that we can make some change here in Canada, make Canada a better place. And we thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.